On this episode of Content Sessions, we talked to Ben Dell about HeySummit. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Hey, pleasure. Good to be here.
It's been a while since we've seen each other.
It's one of those. It feels like it's been about 6 months, but it's probably been about probably a bit more than that. But maybe a year and a half or something. But yeah,
3 years. 3 years since Texas. Yeah.
Okay, I'm bad at estimating.
All good. Yeah. So funny story about how I came across your product. And so I obviously didn't know that HeySummit was yours, but I was kind of in the marketplace for something where I could host an online conference. And then I put it up on some of the Facebook group, and then you DM me being like, "Hey, this is mine." I'm like, "Holy shit, we got to talk about it." So yeah, tell me about the product. Tell me what it's all about.
Yeah, cool. So the clue is in the title. It's all centered around the summit/online conference space. And it in a basic sense, it's a platform that really enables you to construct and then crucially operate and run and deliver online summits and everything that it incorporates, right from the marketing side of things, the virality, onboarding of speakers and setting up the talks, right through to how you engage with the attendees. And crucially, it's all about making sure that you deliver successful summits. And so that's where we exist and how we exist.
Got it. Yeah, I know when we first met, there was a different business in play in the content creating social media space. So how did this one come about? Where did it come from?
So I think the business you're referring to there is another one of mine, Missing Letter, which has been going for a few years now, and one of the first ones I sort of spun out. And yeah, that's in the social media space. And we found ourselves roughly a year ago, pretty much bang on a year ago actually, where we thought it was the beginning of the summer last year, and we were thinking, right, okay, there's something we need to do here to just provide some value to our customers, to our Missing Letter customers over the summer period. It felt like, we weren't going to do a ton of trial conversions, a ton of new customers. So we thought, let's just circle back and deliver a bit of value to our existing customers to show them that we exist and why we exist and the value that we can deliver. And so I thought, hey, let's put on a really, really straightforward webinar of some sort. I could bring in some sort of expert, marketing or growth or social or something along those sorts of lines, get them on a call, like we're doing now, and just invite our user base to, watch and get value from it.
Got it.
And then I thought, well, we've got 8 weeks over the summer, so let's do one a week for about 3 weeks. So again, nothing too ambitious. And then I woke up the next morning and thought, well, that's not ambitious enough, and that doesn't seem very exciting. It doesn't,
that sounds like you.
It does, yeah. Yeah. I guess the listener can decide whether it was a wise move or not. But so it felt as if it wasn't ambitious enough. And I thought, if we're going to do something, even if it's just a gimmicky little marketing thing where we kind of, to re-engage with our audience, I need it to be special in my mind and my heart for me to want to do it. So that morning, it quickly spun out from let's do a 3-week, one a week webinar series to actually let's put on an online summit. And not only did I want to put on a summit that would be contained over a couple of weeks, I thought let's have a big number of speakers, because having a look at a couple of the summits that others had put on in similar sort of spaces, there were typically sort of 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 speakers. Didn't look great. They weren't big names necessarily. Maybe 1 or 2 had a name to share. But they weren't that exciting. They didn't look too compelling. And so straight away I thought, let's put on a 100 speaker summit. Seems like a nice round number. I haven't seen anyone do one that big before. Feels like a bit of a challenge. Let's go with that. So that's where it started. And I gave myself about 8 weeks to, put that thing on. So to find the speakers, come up with the content, and then spin it out and run it. But then I realized on day 2 that there was no platform out there that would actually let us construct and deliver this type of summit, a summit that not only a summit of that scale, but a summit that met our standards in terms of brand continuity and just the overall sort of polish and presentation and quality of the product itself and the output. And so on day 2, I thought, well, let's take it up a notch and let's not only commit to putting on this event and promoting it, but let's actually build a platform from scratch that would enable us to do that, still within that same 8 weeks at a time. So day 3, I started, but also made a key decision on day 3, which was that my team at Missing Letter were too busy. We'd already committed to our quarterly planning. I didn't want to just rip them off for yet another one of Ben's wacky ideas. So day 3 decision was, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to do it all by myself, both the promoting, the organizing, the building, the designing, everything. And so I set off along that path, and fast forward, we did put on the event. As I say, it was roughly a year ago, September last year, 2018.
Yeah, I think I spoke at that event.
You did, yeah.
You did, yeah, that's right.
You spoke, you did,
That's
indeed.
right.
But of course, at the time, it was purely there to enable us to deliver the event that we were hoping to, were planning to put on. There was no sort of aspiration, genuinely, to sort of spin it out into a business. But as we were, delivering the actual event over that 2-week period, and we were engaging with our speakers and our attendees and our sponsors as well, it became very clear that we'd blown them all away in terms of the quality of the delivery. And from the speaker standpoint, they could see a breakdown of, how many people had signed up, what their demographic breakdown was. And it was just, we were clearly delivering something that hadn't, been delivered before, and that didn't exist. And so soon, very, very soon after we delivered the event, I started thinking about how I might spin it out into its own business. And fast forward to today, we are in business, got a separate team, and very much in the stage of sort of growing it out and scaling the business.
Awesome. That's such a you story. I love it. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of elements of it that I find very interesting. One thing coming from a lot of people in my space are into like webinars and host those types of things. And there's a couple of decent softwares for that, but the idea of compiling, multi speaker over multi-day, where it's, not only something that's brand consistent, but also just communication consistent, right? Like, hey, speaker, you haven't filled out this yet. Hey, like, everyone's getting automated responses based on the content that needs to be put in. And, hey, your talk's coming up in a minute, and hey, jump in this room. Like, it felt, and that was obviously the product in its earliest stages. But I remember last year, I felt like it was almost like you had a team of 10 coordinating it all, but it was just the software. So that's really unique, right?
Yeah, and that's very much the point. It's about holding hands in whatever capacity that means, right from start to finish, not just for you as the organizer, but for the sponsors, for the attendees, for the speakers, and just empowering them all to deliver that collective event, that overall event. But crucially, what I saw was that you're right. There is an existing, one could argue, overserved webinar market that many strong competitors and companies in that space. But what I see there is some really, really great companies delivering fantastic webinar solutions. But the difference with a webinar and a summit is that a summit is a much more rounded, sort of cohesive strategy. And as you mentioned, a much more sort of joined up experience from brand communication and everything else. And it's really, I think, representing the trend in the marketplace where kind of webinars are kind of your gateway drug. It's a really, really simple way to just put on a single webinar, and deliver it. And it's very easy in that sense to then say, oh, right, I'm going to do one webinar. I'm going to talk about this topic, or I'm going to bring this person in to talk with me. And I'm going to experiment by, sending that out to my user base and seeing who's interested. And that's great. And it has its purpose. But I think what you then do from that point, if you're serious about delivering video content and engaging whatever that sort of topic is, where you go from there is interesting. And it's about longevity and building a strategy around that. And what I'd seen in the webinar space is that the strategy, in inverted quotes, that they were then providing as an option to their customers was one where, hey, look, you've already built that one webinar. We can help you turn that into a strategy by letting you auto repeat it, that evergreen style webinar.
Yeah.
A little bit scammy, a little bit doesn't feel very good. Anyone watching it knows it's not live, but it was there to serve a need, which was, hey, I've done a really good single piece of content. How can I do more? Where do I go from here? How do I reuse that? How do I turn it into something slightly longer term? But I don't feel that's the right direction. And I think what's really the empowering side of that sort of end of the market is turning it into a bigger event. And as you said, sort of really making sure that the communication, the marketing, the virality, and the overall brand cohesion is part of a bigger sort of thought process.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's funny because so my story I didn't even know that it really existed. I mean, other than coming on yours, I didn't know that it was a product that, you know what I mean? I just figured you'd organized it and put it together. I didn't know it was part of something that you built at the time. And I heard a podcast maybe like 3 weeks ago with a guy who has a competitive product to yours. And that's how I kind of got thinking about it. But one of the interesting things was, if you're in, doesn't matter what the industry is. Like I was thinking about it for existing clients and other people that have been coming on my podcast. And I was like, I've now started to introduce it as a marketing idea to people. And they're like, I didn't know that was a thing. And I love it because, webinar is a webinar. I think a lot of people go into a webinar being like, cool, they're going to talk about themselves for 20 minutes. And then they're going to tell me like 4 things. And then they're going to try and sell me something for the other 20 minutes. Like that's pretty much the formula for webinars, right? Which I hate it so much, but it is what it is. But it was interesting to say like, hey, not only can you bring people in that similar way, but to also be like the host of this big party and get a huge email list out of it if it gets any level of virality around it, right? Like there's just so much there so I'm actually thinking about it for me, like we're talking, we help businesses figure out what kind of content to put on the internet and sometimes for people's personal brands. So I'm like, if I had like 5 or 6 speakers that could talk about how to make content for LinkedIn, even just that as like a 1-day 5 speaker, people that are pretty big on LinkedIn. And it's kind of a cool thing similar to the podcast where people are still really excited to be invited to things like this. Whereas a webinar is like, cool, you're going to bring me on to help you sell something. A summit is more of to me, it sounds more of like there's like a prestige to it, right? People are like, oh, I will talk at this because then I can put this on my speaking resume, and you're giving them that platform. You're hosting the party, which I really, really, really like. So,
but I think also by simply wrapping it up as a summit, it gives you, the person organizing it, the opportunity to give it a name, to give it a little strapline, to basically, if you sort of, if it's akin to setting up a company, a startup, you define your mission statement, your vision, the reason for being there and existing, and you boil that up into the title, the description, and the types of talks and the topics that you're going to talk about. And that's fundamentally important because talking to what you're referring to there, when you then engage with your speakers and crucially the attendees to sort of have them join in that journey and watch the content, there is something for them to hang their hat on. They can actually look at the brand that you set up or the mission statement, if you want to call it that, the title, the description of that summit, and understand fundamentally the value that it's there to deliver. And that's fundamentally different from a webinar where, yes, you still give it a title and everything else. But as you said, the connotation is that, okay, this is a marketing spin. It's obviously going to be, 90% sales sort of. Right. So I think it's a really simple way to sort of show off what you're going to be delivering to your audience in terms of value. That's a great thing. Not only that, but revenue, of course, as well. It is also a great spin-off benefit that we're seeing from our customers.
Yeah. And so when did it actually launch?
So we launched we did a couple of stages. So we did a launch in sort of November, December last year, 2018, where we did a sort of a founding members sort of beta, I suppose you can call it that. And then we launched the proper in kind of February, March, May, that sort of time, sort of just beginning of Q2 of this year.
Got it. And so where has it gone so far? Like how's it going so far?
Yeah, so we're in revenue. We've probably generated about close to $100,000 in revenue for our customers, not for us. I mean, we're in revenue as well, but just from our own customers and the summits that they've run, we've generated for them over $100,000. I think I need to double check the stats, but there or thereabouts in revenue, which is great. We're seeing a lot of repeat business. We've got thousands of customers using it. And what's really, really interesting to see is that by making available to the wider marketplace a product of this quality, and as you said, where you typically find people going, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could put on summits. What we're finding is that it's encouraging a real thought process in our customers in terms of how they then use and take advantage of this system. So whereas before they might have thought, at some point in the future, I might put on a summit, or if indeed they had thought of putting on a summit, now we're seeing a behavior where they are thinking, hey, I'm going to put one on every quarter or every month or whatever it might be. And to your point before, you were saying you were thinking of potentially putting on a summit around LinkedIn. That's actually a lot of what we're seeing, not LinkedIn specifically, but going really niche. And there's a huge value that our customers are seeing from that. Coming up with a really, really specific topic, doing it, whether it's over a week or over a 24-hour period, doesn't matter. But by making it specific, it in many ways makes it far easier to bring people in, because you're being incredibly transparent about the value that you're promising to people. Yeah.
Well, I like it because, I mean, I've considered multiple times hosting an in-person, like 100-person, like all these different scenarios, and thinking about, okay, I got to plan it in advance. People need to be able to travel to it. I need to be able to afford the space and then get the space. And then I'm like looking at this and I'm like, you just basically drove a truck through the barrier to entry. Like
yeah. I mean, look, we don't think it's going to replace. I think there's still a time and a place for in-person events, as there should be. But you're absolutely right. It provides an alternative that is absolutely meaningful now. And I think in the past, it was either not in the reach of the majority, because in the past you would have to build out the software or custom sort of piece things together, like a theme from WordPress, get a designer to do something, piece it in with some sort of shopping cart if you're going to sell it, and just piece all these things together.
Email sequencing,
everything. And so it just wasn't done by most people. So it's in the reach now. And I think that's the thing. It's kind of democratized summits for the masses. And we're seeing, people from consultants and coaches putting them on all the way through to, enterprises, which is really, really interesting, because it's not being adopted dominantly anyway by one particular segment.
Right. Have you seen it being used at all, like internal, like for internal brands like that have people around the world or whatever? I could see that you could use it as like an internal sales
team building conference. Maybe. Yeah, good question. Off the top of my head, I haven't come across any. Certainly they haven't reached out to us and told us. We don't have a setting where they specify whether it's internal or external, so we wouldn't know black and white who the intended audience is for. But yeah, good question. Not sure.
Yeah, there you go. And so now it's fully done up. You've been selling now for maybe 6 months. What are you doing from a marketing standpoint? How are you guys thinking about it?
Yeah, so we are currently, there's a bunch of things. So there's on-site stuff, and we're big into that. We're sort of tech focused, I suppose, is the way of saying it. So we've got sort of viral loops built in, and unless you're on our biggest plan, where you can remove our branding, the majority aren't. And so we have a powered by HeySummit in the email footer, and a couple of other, on the site as well. So we're seeing a lot of just sort of interest coming to our main marketing site through there. So that's a really powerful way.
And just before we skip ahead of that, the viral loop thing, just for people that don't know it.
Yeah, well, the viral loop for us is that, right. You consider, one person putting on one summit and they have 5,000 attendees. Well, if they have a powered by HeySummit in the footer of the site that we create for them, and indeed in the emails that we send out, then we've got a massive audience that we are putting ourselves in front of. But the organizer also gets viral loops as well. So we encourage their attendees, those that sign up, to share the love and share it on Twitter and Facebook, and we make it really easy for them. We have giveaways built in, and prizes and offers and different sort of incentives to sort of make it a bit more of a no-brainer, and we try and remove as many of those boundaries as possible. So that's kind of the on-site sort of stuff. What we're focusing on right now is the affiliate side of things, and so we are heavy in that at the moment. Too early to say what the sort of real results are going to be of that, but we think we've got a really interesting mix here in terms of the offer that we're going out to with, and how we're engaging with our affiliates is probably the way to describe it.
Got it. Yeah.
For them, but we see that as it's a bit of a no-brainer. What we're creating for our affiliates in terms of what they then have to share with their audience and the value that they can give. And that's the key thing that I've learned in working with affiliates over the years, is that it's very easy to think, okay, cool, we'll just come up with a 50% discount for the first 3 months for our affiliates, and we'll send them the link. They'll get a personal URL so we can track them and do all that sort of stuff. But we'll give them that basic 50% discount, and that will be good enough. They'll share it with their list, and we'll get lots of people signing up. But it's not compelling enough, I think, and it's not a good enough reason for the affiliate with conviction to share it with their audience. They may well include it in their newsletter or their email, but with real conviction, and for them to want to push it and say, look, this is a no-brainer, it's not good enough, I don't think. And so we're really working hard to flip that on its head right now, to come up with a much more sort of customized experience and offer for our affiliates that on a very basic level is a gateway into the wider HeySummit product for those that they refer. But even if they don't end up using the wider product, is a revenue driver and a brand generator.
Got it. And are you able to
say too much about anything, but that's kind of where we're focused at the moment.
For sure. And have you been able to leverage the affiliate people that you've used for your other products? So you've got a couple other products on the market right now. Is it similar people that you're going out to? You already have that network?
At this stage, no, we haven't cross sort of channeled them at all at this stage. I think we may do at some point, but certainly with regards to HeySummit, we're still working on the strategy. So we haven't properly, I mean, we've got a few sort of early stage affiliates, but we haven't properly sort of marketed it yet. But we may do at some point.
Got it. And so who do you guys see as your target audience? I guess it's open-ended, but there's probably a pocket of people that are kind of the best people that will likely get the software and execute on it right away. Do you have an idea for that?
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's potentially anyone, but for those that get the most value from it, I think an established business, and when I say established, anything from sort of a year onwards, so super early stage startup, you want to be doing other things probably, but once you've got a bit of traction, a bit of revenue, don't have to be product market fit or anything like that quite yet, but once you've got a bit of traction and beyond, of course, we're seeing this as a really powerful way for either the founder or the marketing team to, really construct a summit around a particular topic that is close to their hearts or close to their sort of core product, and use that as a real way to just drive eyeballs onto their core product. And for them, as you mentioned before, to be seen as an authority in that space. And so when you think of it in those terms, i.e. it being a really powerful tool to build you or your brand as an authority around the subject that you're delivering, it ties in really, really well with companies that are looking to really sort of boost that sort of brand recognition and awareness within their space. So, tech focused products are really, really, great because it's all online anyway. But what we're seeing a lot of also are kind of the more obscure, I suppose. So the relatively more obscure, a lot of coaches and consultants, marketing consultants specifically, and even authors and publishers, people who just want to bring people around particular subject matters. In fact, we're also seeing people who have completely wacky sort of businesses that aren't necessarily online companies at all, and that right. They might be selling tenting supplies or doing offline excursions and whatever it might be, weird sort of things. But they'll put on because they've got a real niche sort of focus on a particular subject matter, whether it's tiny homes or RVs or whatever it is. They're putting on events around that really niched out subject, and driving huge revenue and number of attendees to those events, simply because they know that there's a lot of people out there that like to, pay attention to that subject matter. In fact, we're seeing people create businesses around HeySummit. We've got a bunch of people now who are putting on events, one a month. They come up with the subject matter each time. They drive sponsors on the back of that subject. They charge for access. And so they've got now, hugely profitable businesses simply based on using or putting on a summit once a month or once every couple of months. So it really does cover a range of people there. But a typical long answer from me, so apologies for that. But yeah,
it's all good. Yeah, I mean, the things that hit me in the face from the marketing standpoint is, like, number one, the branding and awareness from putting it on. think, oh, this company or this guy, however they're focusing the business, is the guy that hosted this thing with 4,000 people that came to it. Like there's there's some prestige and there's some credibility built behind that. And then I think, yeah, if you charge for the event or not, but I think just that email list that comes out of it can be incredibly powerful if you've got a good strategy for it. And it's like people that came for a specific niche. I mean, it's like the perfect storm, right? One thing that strikes me, just as you were talking about kind of coaches and trainers and stuff like that, as you're starting to do outreach and you're trying to figure out where these people are, I mean, you can use like Upwork and source a list. But one thing that I've used in the past is, Built With. Have we talked about
Yes.
Built With before?
Yep.
They have a directory of people that have teachable websites, which are typically people that have an online course or something like that already, who would typically be the webinar as the gateway drug. But I wonder if you could grab, I mean, it'd be a couple $100, but you could probably grab a list of like 20, 30,000 active, like Teachable and a couple of those other online course style accounts, and grab a bunch of emails from that. And whether you cold email them or whether you dump them into Facebook and target them with ads, it might be a really good launching point. And you can address them really specifically, like, hey, do you have an online course? Like, yeah, I do. How did you know that? It might be a really interesting way to like get the attention of those people. Again, whether it's you cold email them, which you could put them into a drip sequence in like Mailshake or whatever, or you make them as a custom audience on Facebook and then potentially run like advertising to them.
Yeah, I like that. I've made a note.
Passing it on to the marketing team. And so where in your mind do you see this all, where in your mind do you see it going? Or do you just have a sense of like, it's going to be big because it's such a great way of communicating, so we're just on for the ride? Or do you have a vision for where it's going to go, like where you want it to go?
Well, fundamentally, I mean, it is partially that, because in a very basic sense, it is, a rapidly growing side of the market, and we don't see it slowing down anytime soon. And so we want to, absolutely be and continue to be the dominant player in that, space. We want to be the market leader. And so, with that, we need to continually innovate and we just rolled out a whole localization translation sort of module the last few days. So people, we've now got customers around the world using it and more able to now as a result of that. So one side of it is just that, making sure that we continually keep ourselves at the front. But more importantly, I think from a mission standpoint, we do fundamentally see this as a real responsible way for delivering content. And to your point before about contrasting it with the in-person events that, not only cost you, the operator, more to deliver, but from an environmental standpoint, it's just not as efficient. You've got to fly people over, drive them over, whatever it might be. Here, people can actually, put them on without all of that. And so a big part of what we're trying to do is in the longer term is actually encourage, those larger organizations, the charities, and playing to your point before about those internal style summits, having them deliver them through technology like HeySummit in the future. And so we have a big sort of focus on that, or at the very least having those larger companies complement their maybe one a year sort of in-person events with these. But yeah, it's really about, I think, transforming the perception more than anything in our customers' eyes and the wider world, why and how these summits exist and how they can be used to advantage. And something that's really important to us is making sure that the way that we help our customers deliver that content is done in a way that is meaningful to the extent that it's not putting them in the wrong light. And, I would contrast that with a lot of those webinar platforms that will let you put on those evergreen sort of, summits. I can't think, or evergreen webinars. I don't think we'll ever go down that sort of route. It's all about honesty in the sense of creating an honest output for our customers. And so, although you can deliver pre-recorded videos, we had one guy in the conference we did last year who double booked because he was on his honeymoon and he forgot that he was getting married when he agreed to talk at our event. And so in that case, we pre-recorded his talk and he was able to go off on his honeymoon, which I think was fair enough. And we were able to pre-record. So obviously we have pre-recorded elements, but this notion of having this pure automation and recycling of content for the sake of it, when it's given the impression that it's real and live, is not an area that we care about right now. And so, we really want to make sure that we're delivering things in the right way, to really uphold our customers' brands and integrity, and for the bigger companies really to see summits as a meaningful, viable, trustworthy sort of way to deliver that content and build their brands.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And so how are you guys thinking about your content that's getting delivered out? Like, are you I mean, the website obviously does a pretty good job of telling the story about what it's about, but are you guys what other content are you guys putting together or putting out into the world to kind of
that's a
iterate
good question. I mean, we're very much, in the cold phase at the moment, building out the product and building out strategies and everything else. So we haven't come up with a content marketing strategy yet. We haven't done paid ads or anything else. But being a bit meta for a second, I think the very first thing we will almost certainly do is a summit on summits.
I was gonna add, that was right in the top of my head. I'm like, you guys better do that.
It's such an obvious thing because
yeah.
Even people who have put on summits before through other platforms or whatever, or certainly who have put on webinars before, there is a way to put on summits, and there's a slightly better way. And I think almost everyone across our board signing up would benefit from learning a bit more from the experts, from people who've put summits on before, as well as sort of really ingrained tips and tricks on how to get the most out of our platform. So putting on a summit to help people put on better summits, I think, is a natural thing that we'll be doing very soon. In fact, we have plans to do so.
Love it. Yeah. That was like the first thing in my brain. I'm like, you guys better host a summit to talk about these things. Makes sense. One thing actually, I know, the viral loop and that brand affinity, I know that's something that you guys are really focused on across all of your products, all the businesses that you have. One thing that I stumbled across, I was telling a guy, I was hosting a podcast live here last night, and what we were talking about is, it's called Bonjoro. Bonjoro or Jouro. I can't remember. I know a lot of the times I tried searching it, it came up with the word from Italian, so I didn't know what the hell it was talking about. But I think it's Bonjoro, Bonjoro. And what it does, so someone signs up and they purchase whatever it is, whether it's the package or the trial or whatever is your first kind of point of entry. But what they get obviously from you guys is hey, it's us. Thank you so much for signing up. And you guys do a pretty good job of writing pretty personalized content in terms of, hey, I'm this person, I'm this part of the company. If you need any help, here's some support. Here's, you guys do a pretty good job in that opening email compared to a lot of SaaS products. But what Bonjoro does is it allows you to, through the app, it sets up an automation so that you can actually communicate with them via video, but in really short bursts. So the automation sequence could go, Mike signs up for an account. Mike's email gets pinged into Bonjoro. So the app will ping you and say, hey, this guy Mike just signed up. And you can literally click it, record a 10-second video. Hey, it's Ben. I just wanted to thank you. Means the world to me that you gave us a shot. And I really hope we can help. If there's anything else we can do for you, let us know. So you can actually record a 10-second video. And then in the app, you're just cool, I'm done. And then it pings it back out to that person. So within a couple of minutes of signing up, you could have a really a personalized video of someone from your team thanking them. I think it would just add a layer of because everyone gets the thank you email. And you guys already elevated it to an extent. I think you guys do a good job, but that might be that really over the top. Can you imagine the last time you bought something, if you got a video from the founder 4 minutes later being hey, it means the world to me, thank you so much. And I just think on the topic of trying to get them to get more people signed up, kind of getting them, getting people that want the affiliate link and then to actually use the affiliate link, I think that increases that desire for people to want to help by getting some kind of message.
Interesting. I made a note. I'm going to look into that. I think I have come across it before, and there was a reason why I didn't take it further. I wonder what it was. I shall be reminded when I look at it next time.
It's actually very affordable. I think it's $20 or $30 a month for one sequence. And then it depends, if you're e-commerce, you can have multiple different, if this, you can send a bunch of layers. But I like it just for the especially when it's not at a scale where it's unmanageable. You know what I mean? If it was 500 signups a day, then it'd be like, oh shit, you can't do that. But even if it was like 100 a week, I think it's still worth that like 10 seconds to like send that message out. And I'm actually starting to implement it on my side for like even just people that download our, our social media guide or our whatever and join the mailing list. I like it for that. Like, hey, we're going to try our best to give you wicked content. If there's ever anything you want to see or you want us to experiment with and get back to you, like, please send it. And I think it just builds that like, wow.
But that video, that message you're talking about there is per person, or is that a canned message?
So either way. So it can be canned, but within the app, it can like ping you and say, Mike Moll just did this, if it has like their details in the sign up. And so you could quickly record a, hey, Mike, hey, John, hey, Sally, hey, whatever. And you could do them one at a time. And I think for the extra couple of seconds, I would just do it that way. Because if you're just sending it canned, you could probably just send a sequenced thing. The same way your automatic email would go out, you could just send a hey, thank you so much for signing up. I think it's when you add the name. I think it's when you add the name. It's like you elevate it quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, maybe it's as subtle as that. Because as you were describing or reiterating your message, that's all generic. It feels very natural hearing you talk about it now. But you can imagine that being a very generic thing that you would write up or record. And so the challenge would be, how do you, if you're recording them on demand, how do you do it in such a way that you feel you're not just regurgitating the same thing, but maybe just by having that person's name at the beginning of that message is enough to make them feel as if it's for them. I'll have a look at that. I mean, I think there's always, it's a fascinating space for me, that onboarding sort of process from sign up through to activation. And funnily enough, that's actually what the fourth business is very much focused on. Not this video side of things, right, but that stage of the sign up process. And it's something that I think we could always do better at as
yeah. I mean, from my experience, we've worked together in the past. Like, you guys do a pretty good job, and you guys have a lot of different, hey, here's some tip, or hey, if you want to join a webinar to learn more about how it works. Like, I mean, doing those in themselves is great, because there's a lot of people that don't want to go through the FAQ, and a lot of people's FAQs suck anyway. They're not intuitive to searching the way I want to search. So that webinar and offering that style of thing, I think, is always a smart thing. And that's something that you guys have always done really well. So yeah, I mean, I think you would be the guy that I would trust to make that business. So cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that's all the questions that I kind of had about it. Was there any marketing things that you had on your mind, or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's running its own course at the moment. So, I think the on-site stuff is really where we are focused at this stage. As well as I said, the affiliate, of course, but because we have, a growing number of people just on the site, we've got, hundreds and hundreds every day, sort of, obviously thousands every day, but in terms of any given time, I should say, there's a real opportunity, I think, to sort of do more to get our brand in front. And so that's kind of what's on at this stage.
One other thing that you might think about, because I'm imagining when I host a summit, it's still all traffic going to your site, even though it's my personalized area of your site. Is that correct?
It's our servers. The default is, yes, it's our domain. So it'll be, whatever your, MikeSummit.HeySummit.com. But you can set up a custom domain, and then you can call it MikeSummit.com and link that to. But
on those pages that I'm hosting on, so I'm like, my users, they come on, there's like the main dashboard, and I go into this talk, I go into that talk. Do you have the opportunity to use like the Google tracking and the Facebook pixel to potentially remarket to attendees of a summit because it's on yours?
As from our standpoint as HeySummit, or from the organizer, from yours, on the summit?
For yours, yeah, like as HeySummit.
We do have the opportunity. We haven't thought about that. I guess it's an interesting one.
I mean, the data is not necessarily as focused as the people that are signing up, because if I'm an attendee, it might be I'm a whatever that came across somebody's conference that came on, but it might be interesting to collect some of the information. At least you can know, You know what I mean? You can distill like what's the age and the gender and the location of the people that are coming on in general. And it might not be practical for remarketing, but it just might be an interesting statistic for you guys to wrap your head around. Who's the people that are attending conferences? That might actually help you deliver marketing content in the future, right? You might say, hey, it's all these different businesses and all these different niches, but it seems to be males 25 to 34 who are attending. That seems to be the vast majority of it. And that might give you some ideas on how you can, configure the product in a different way or position it from a marketing standpoint in a different way. Just knowing.
Yeah, that's interesting. There is scope to do that. I think I'll give that some thought. I'll talk with the team.
Yeah. Again, I don't know exactly how you'd use it. It's just like, it feels like if you can get the data, you might as well get it.
Well, and I'd also, just from a basic standpoint of remarketing, a typical SaaS business, typical online business would do that for people who just land on their site. Effectively, people are landing on our site, albeit through someone else's summit. But as long as our branding is visible anyway for those summits, they haven't been disabled. I think there's scope to, to sort of, pop something in front of their feeds in Facebook. I'll talk to the team. I think there's something to be done there.
Cool.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right, man. Well, I'd love to check in like half a year and see where it's at. I mean, it's fun. It's like that bubbly early stage. There's a lot going on, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'm excited to use it myself. I don't know when. I'm probably in the next couple months. I want to launch mine, but yeah, I mean, it's just such an easy fix. I had it in my head to host something, and I was like, no, this is the thing. I'm so happy I came across it. So it's
cool.
exciting.
So
Exciting stuff.
Great to see you stumble upon it in the wild. Let us know when you have yours set up. We'll see if we can help in some way.
Awesome.
Cool. Good to catch up.
Good. Yeah, you too, man.
Cool.
Have a
Cheers.
good one.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.